I was staring at this graph this morning, and it wasn't my retirement fund, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
It was a chart of human technological progress over like the last 10,000 years.
Ah, the famous hockey stick graph.
Exactly. You look at it and it's just flat, flat, flat. I mean, basically, farmers and pottery for millennia.
hmm
And then right at the very, very end, practically yesterday in the grand scheme of things, the line just shoots straight up.
It goes completely vertical. It's startling when you actually see it visualized like that.
It is, and it brings up this feeling I've been having lately. Does it feel to you like science fiction is just becoming, well, Tuesday?
Ah, Tuesday. Yeah.
Wake up, check the news, and something that was supposed to be 20 years away just happened while you were sleeping.
Yeah.
It feels like the speedometer on civilization just broke.
It definitely feels that way. And honestly, it's not just a feeling. The data backs that up. We are seeing development curves go vertical in fields that used to move at like a snail's pace.
Right. And that's exactly what we are digging into today.
Yeah.
We aren't just looking at the cool gadgets or the headlines. We're asking a mechanics question.
Mm.
Is there a hidden mechanism driving all this? Is there an engine under the hood of civilization that has suddenly, shifted into a new gear?
It's the ultimate question. And to answer it, we've pulled together a really unique stack of sources for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're combining insights from physicist Alex Wisner-Gross on something he calls the innermost loop with hard data on Dyson swarms and why we might need to disassemble the moon to build them.
Which sounds absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Disassemble the moon. You can't just drop that in casual conversation.
It sounds like a supervillain plot, I know, but the logic is surprisingly sound. We're also looking at biology breakthroughs like AlphaFold and a device from MIT called Alter Ego that, well, it essentially allows for telepathy.
Okay, so our mission today is to connect these dots. We're going to draw a line from the economics of AI through the biology of our own bodies all the way out to infrastructure around Jupiter.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot, but I promise by the end of this, you'll see it's actually one single coherent roadmap.
It's all one story. It's the story of efficiency and scale.
Okay, let's find the engine. Let's start with Alex Wisner-Gross and this concept of the innermost loop. What exactly are we looping here?
Well, to understand the innermost loop, you have to look at how we, humanity, used to do things. For most of history, we operated on what Wisner-Gross calls the biological loop.
Which is us.
Right. Sunlight grows food. Humans eat food. Humans have ideas. Humans build tools. That process is incredibly slow because it's bottlenecked by biology. It takes 20 years to raise a new human engineer. It takes generations to iterate on a new technology because we have to sleep, we forget things, and, eventually we die.
It's the human latency problem. We are the slow link in the chain.
Precisely. Now, the core argument here is that we have entered a phase where that bottleneck is being removed. We are entering the silicon loop.
Okay.
This is a self-reinforcing cycle that doesn't need us to manually spin the wheel anymore.
So walk us through the mechanics. How does this cycle actually turn?
Okay, so imagine a 4-step cycle. Step 1, robots build factories, specifically automated fabrication plants, or
Fabs.
exactly, the fabs. Step 2, those fabs produce advanced computer chips, specifically GPUs designed for AI.
Got it.
Step 3, those chips are aggregated to train massive AI models.
And step 4.
Step 4 is the closer. Those AI models then design better robots and more efficient factories.
Oh, wow.
Which then build better chips, which train smarter AI, which design even better robots.
I see. So the output of the cycle becomes the input for the next cycle, but upgraded. It feeds itself.
And crucially, it runs 247. It doesn't need a coffee break, it doesn't need parental leave, and it doesn't need to sleep. The implication here is massive.
Yeah.
It means intelligence. The raw ability to solve problems is no longer a scarce resource tethered to biological brains.
This was the aha moment for me reading the notes. We're used to thinking of intelligence as something, I don't know, mystical or special. But in this loop, intelligence is just an industrial product, like steel.
Or plastic. That's the shift. And because it's an industrial product, it's subject to industrial economics. There's a staggering statistic from our sources. The cost of intelligence, measured in the cost to train a model of a certain capability, is dropping by roughly 40 times per year.
Hold on, 40 times per year.
Per year.
So, okay, let's try to get our heads around that.
Yeah.
If the cost of housing dropped 40 times a year.
A penthouse in Manhattan would cost, what, $5 by next Christmas?
$5? That's just insane. That is exponential deflation.
It's the experience curve on steroids. We aren't just getting linearly better at this. We were seeing a complete collapse in the cost of being smart.
Wow.
But, and this is a huge but that we need to address, we have to be careful not to think this is just about software.
Right, because the general public gets fixated on the chatbots. We see the interface, the
Yeah.
magic text box, and we forget the infrastructure.
Exactly. The innermost loop isn't just code floating in the cloud, it's physical. Remember step one?
Robots building factories.
Right. The real constraints on this loop are atoms and energy. You need physical supply chains, you need silicon, you need water for cooling, and you need massive, massive amounts of electricity.
So the AI race isn't really a race for the best algorithm,
No, not really.
because everyone gets the algorithm eventually. It's a race for the physical capacity to actually run the loop.
Correct. It's an industrial revolution, not just a digital one. It consumes resources.
Okay, so we have this engine, this silicon loop, churning out cheap intelligence.
Yeah.
But let's play devil's advocate. What does that actually look like for the person listening? Because right now, for a lot of people, AI just looks like, better email, autocomplete, or funny image generation.
That's a fair criticism if you only look at the consumer layer. But if you look at the bulk solving power, where we throw massive intelligence at scientific problems, it's already cracking things we thought were impossible.
Okay.
The best proof of this is in biology, specifically the protein folding problem.
Oh, this is a great example. This connects to DeepMind and AlphaFold. I remember hearing about this, but break it down for us. Why do we care about protein folding? Is this just, academic?
Far from it. Think of your body as a machine. Every single function digesting food, moving a muscle, fighting a virus is performed by a protein.
Okay.
But proteins aren't just chemical soup, they are little machines. And for a machine to work, it has to be shaped correctly.
The lock and key analogy.
Right. If a protein needs to interact with a cell, it has to fit into a receptor like a key and a lock. But proteins start out as these long strings of amino acids. To become a key, they have to fold up into a very specific, complex 3D shape.
Like a piece of origami that has to fold itself perfectly to turn into a crane.
Exactly. And if it misfolds, if the crane has a crumpled wing, it doesn't work. Or worse, it causes disease. Now, for decades, the problem was we didn't know the shapes.
We knew the ingredients, the amino acids, but not
The
the...
final origami shape.
Right.
And finding that shape was a nightmare. The old method, X-ray crystallography, you had to shoot X-rays at crystallized proteins. It took a team of scientists years and millions of dollars to figure out one protein.
Years. For one protein.
Yes, and there are hundreds of millions of proteins. It was a hopeless task. I mean, it would have taken us longer than the age of the universe to map them all manually.
Enter the silicon loop.
Enter AlphaFold. DeepMind trained an AI on the known structures, and it learned the physics of folding. It learned the rules. Now it can predict the 3D shape of almost every protein known to science.
And how fast?
Seconds.
Yeah.
We went from years per protein to seconds per protein.
That's that deflation we talked about.
Yeah.
The cost of the answer just went to zero. But why does this matter to, a listener's health?
Well, it completely changes drug discovery. Historically, making a new drug was largely trial and error. You mix chemicals and you hope one of them fits the lock.
Right.
Now, we can design the key on a computer. We can simulate exactly how a drug will bind to a protein before we ever step into a lab.
So it speeds up medicine development from decades to maybe months.
And it tackles the incurable. Think about Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cystic fibrosis. Our sources explain that these are often misfolding diseases. Alzheimer's involves plaques proteins that folded wrong and clumped together in the brain.
So if we understand the folding rules, we can understand the error.
We can engineer therapies to prevent the misfolding or to clear the clumps. We are moving from guessing to engineering biology.
There was one other application in the notes that just blew my mind, designing things that don't exist in nature. De novo proteins.
Yes, this is the frontier. We can work backward. We can say, I want a protein that eats plastic, or I want an enzyme that breaks down oil spills.
Wow.
The AI can calculate the shape required to perform that chemical reaction and tell us the amino acid sequence to build it.
So we aren't just reading the book of life anymore. We're writing new chapters.
It's incredible. But let's circle back to the constraint we mentioned earlier.
Right.
The inner loop runs on energy, simulating every protein in the universe and running billions of AI agents. I mean, that electric bill is going to be astronomical.
This is the bottleneck. I read that data centers are already consuming sizable percentages of national power grids.
It's worse than that. It's a thermodynamic limit. Even if we had the electricity, computing generates heat. If we try to run the silicon loop at its full potential on Earth, we would eventually produce enough waste heat to literally boil the oceans.
So we can't do it here.
We simply cannot do this here.
We need a bigger room and a bigger battery. Which brings us to the Dyson swarm. Now, I have to clarify this immediately because when I hear Dyson sphere, I think of Star Trek. A giant solid shell around the sun.
Which is physically impossible. The gravitational stresses from the star would tear a solid shell apart instantly. It would be a total engineering disaster.
So what are we actually talking about?
We're talking about a swarm, a loose network of billions of independent satellites. Imagine a cloud of solar collectors and data centers orbiting the sun, harvesting the energy directly at the source.
Okay, that feels more realistic.
Yeah.
But we aren't launching a billion satellites from Cape Canaveral. The cost would be insane. The rocket fuel alone.
Right. You don't build space infrastructure with Earth materials. You have to build it in situ. And the roadmap suggests we start with our neighbor. The strategy is Moon first, Jupiter second.
Okay, let's break that down. Why the moon? I mean, it's a dusty rock. Why is it target number one for the future of AI?
It comes down to three things: proximity, materials, and gravity.
Okay.
First, the proximity. The moon is only about 1.3 light seconds away.
Meaning a signal takes about 2.5 seconds to go there and back.
Exactly. Now, you can't play Call of Duty with 2.5 seconds of lag, but for cloud storage, for training a massive AI model, it's perfectly fine. It allows the moon to serve Earth's digital economy directly.
So we put the data centers up there, but we don't ship the servers from Amazon.
No. That's where materials come in. The moon's regolith. The soil is rich in silicon and aluminum.
Which are exactly the materials you need to build chips and solar panels.
Precisely. We can disassemble parts of the moon to build the infrastructure right there. And because the moon has a tiny gravity, well, compared to Earth, about 1/6, launching those satellites into orbit is cheap. It's the perfect bootstrapping phase.
Okay, so the moon is the starter kit. We turn it into a massive server farm and solar array, but the roadmap says that eventually we run out of moon.
Right. If the inner loop keeps accelerating, which it will, we eventually need more mass and more cooling than the moon can provide. That's when we look at Jupiter.
The end game.
Jupiter is the mass reservoir of the solar system. It has more mass than all other planets combined. If you want to build a truly stellar scale computer, what futurists call a matryoshka brain, you need that raw material.
But Jupiter's really far away. The lag isn't 2 seconds anymore.
No, it's more like 30 to 50 minutes depending on the orbit. So you aren't using Jupiter for a Zoom call.
No.
But that leads to an interesting specialization. The moon is for hot storage and interaction with Earth. Jupiter becomes cold storage and deep thought.
Deep thought.
Think about it. Data centers generate immense heat. Jupiter's far from the sun, so it's naturally cold. It's a thermodynamic paradise for computing. Plus, Jupiter is essentially a ball of hydrogen and helium.
Fuel.
Infinite fusion fuel. You could run these massive servers for billions of years, so the roadmap is use the moon to build the network and use Jupiter to scale it to infinity.
It's staggering to think about. We're talking about reorganizing the solar system to feed this hunger for intelligence.
It is the logical conclusion of the inner loop. If intelligence is the most valuable commodity in the universe, a civilization will eventually reshape its environment to produce as much of it as possible.
But this brings up a very human problem. We've talked about robots, proteins, and planets. But if we're actually going out there, if humans are going to oversee this infrastructure on the moon or travel toward Jupiter, we have a communication issue.
We do. Space travel is not like Star Wars. It is cramped and it is loud.
That's something I hadn't really considered until I read the notes on this, the fishbowl problem.
It's a huge psychological strain. Imagine being in a tin can with 4 other people for 6 months. There is zero acoustic privacy.
If you want to talk to your family back on Earth, everyone hears you.
If you need to talk to a therapist because the isolation is getting to you, everyone hears you. It creates massive social friction. You lose the ability to be an individual.
And then there's the noise.
Right. Spacecraft are incredibly noisy environments. Fans, pumps, life support. It's a constant industrial drone. If an alarm goes off or engines are firing, you can't just yell, "Hey, computer, turn off the lights." The voice recognition will fail.
So we need a way to talk that doesn't rely on sound. And that brings us to the final piece of our puzzle today, alter ego.
Yes, developed by the Media Lab at MIT. This is a wearable headset, but it's not reading your brainwaves. That technology is still a bit noisy and unreliable. Instead, this reads your neuromuscular signals.
The muscles in your face.
Exactly. When you say words in your head, when you subvocalize, your brain still sends tiny electrical signals to your jaw and face muscles, even if you don't move your mouth or make a sound.
So I can talk to myself internally, and this device hears the electrical impulse.
It detects those EMG signals with nearly 100% accuracy. And then it talks back to you using bone conduction headphones.
So it vibrates the sound through your skull directly into your inner ear.
Right. To the outside observer, you are sitting there silently. But in your head, you are having a full conversation.
That solves the privacy problem instantly. You can talk to your spouse on Earth, and the astronaut sitting 2 feet away hears nothing.
And it solves the noise problem. Since it's reading electrical signals, not sound waves, it doesn't matter if a rocket engine is roaring next to you. The signal is crystal clear.
The notes mention something called the Jarvis effect, which I love.
It's that idea on a third hand. Imagine you are doing a spacewalk. You're in a pressurized suit, your hands are clumsy and thick gloves, and you're holding a tool. You can't type on a keyboard.
But with alter ego.
You just think the command, scroll down on the schematic, turn on the suit lights, check oxygen levels. You are controlling the ship's AI and your environment seamlessly without breaking your workflow.
It effectively merges the human with the ship's computer. It reduces the cognitive load. You don't have to memorize every procedure. You just ask the AI silently, and it whispers the instructions into your ear.
It keeps the human in the loop. We talked about the silicon loop removing the human bottleneck in production, but devices like alter ego ensure that humans can still interface with that massive intelligence. It's the bridge between our biology and that Dyson swarm infrastructure.
So let's zoom out. We've covered a lot of ground. What does this all mean when we put it together?
Well, if we look back at the journey we just took, we started with the economic engine, the inner loop. We saw that it drives the cost of intelligence to near zero.
Right.
Then we saw the output of that engine, bulk solving problems like protein folding, revolutionizing medicine and materials.
And then we looked at the physical requirements. To keep that engine running without destroying Earth, we need the energy and materials from the moon and Jupiter, the Dyson swarm.
And finally, we saw the interface alter ego that allows us to live and work within that massive machine.
It really is a complete ecosystem. It's not random tech. It's a new civilization stack.
It is. And I think the biggest takeaway for the listener is this shift in what constitutes value. We are moving from a labor-based economy where value comes from human muscle or human hours to an electron economy.
An electron economy.
Where energy and compute are the currency.
Right.
The entity, whether it's a company or a country, that secures the cheapest energy and the most efficient compute essentially wins the future.
It's a sobering thought, but also an exciting one. It just changes the rules of the game completely.
It does. And I want to leave the listener with a thought experiment based on that experience curve we discussed.
That's right.
We know intelligence is getting cheaper, 40 times cheaper per year. So extrapolate that. What happens when intelligence becomes effectively free? What happens when solving a complex physics problem costs the same as sending a text message?
It's hard to even imagine. It removes the barrier of difficulty.
Exactly. It flips the question. The limitation is no longer, can we solve this? The limitation becomes, what do we choose to solve?
Right.
So my question to you and the listener is, what insoluble problem would you solve if you had unlimited compute? If you had a Jupiter-sized brain at your disposal, what is the first thing you'd ask it?
That is a massive question to end on. I think I'd ask it where I left my keys, but I'm sure our listeners have better ideas.
I would hope so.
Thanks for taking this trip with us. From the microscale of proteins to the macroscale of Jupiter, the future is accelerating fast. Keep your eyes open, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.
Stay curious.